Shalom uvracha, Yerushalayim Ir HaKodesh. This evening we study the weekly section, Parashat HaShavua, Parashat Emor. In the opening section of our parasha, we read of a specific instruction to the group of the Kohanim priests. Emor el HaKohanim b'nei Aharon l'nefesh v'amarta alehem l'nefesh lo yitama b'amav. With very few exceptions, and the exceptions are enumerated in our parasha, it is prohibited for a Kohen priest to come into direct contact with a dead body. A Kohen cannot move a corpse. A Kohen cannot actively bury the deceased. He cannot even be under the same roof as the person who has passed away. L'nefesh lo yitama b'amav. The Kohen may not spiritually contaminate himself through contact with the dead. However, there is no explicit reason stated in our parasha as to the basis for this teaching. Why can the Kohen not connect to the dead? Why can he not defile himself through contact with the person who passed on? And one could perhaps suggest that the Kohen, who is the leader of so many of the proceedings in the temple, maybe it is incumbent upon him to remain spiritually pure. Maybe the spiritual purity of the Kohen is necessary in order not to curtail his potential for proper temple service. Perhaps the Kohen is on a certain advanced level, and as such must follow certain added restrictions to maintain levels of advanced spirituality. With your permission, I would like to study a certain approach based on the writings and teachings of the Ishbitzer Rebbe. The Ishbitzer suggests that it is prohibited for a Kohen, it is prohibited for a Kohen priest to be in contact with the dead because the Kohen is obligated to be in a constant state of happiness. He must always be in a happy state of mind. Funeral processions in cemeteries could, God forbid, lead a Kohen into a state of depression. Melancholy and kahuna do not go together. It is the Kohen who is to teach the Torah to the people. And as such, we must make sure that the Kohen is in a state of mind wherein he can properly teach. The great prophet Malachi, the great prophet Malachi says, Ki siftei Kohen yishmru dat, v'torah yivakshu mipihu, ki malach Hashem tzvakotu. For the very lips of the Kohen priest, they guard knowledge. The Kohen is supposed to be speaking words of knowledge from his lips. Torah! Yivakshu mipihu. Torah shall be sought from his mouth. For he is the messenger of God in this area. If he's the messenger of God, l'nefesh lo yitama ba'amav. According to the Ishbitzer, one cannot be a proper Torah teacher if one is in a state of sadness. The Kohanim had to remove themselves from exposure to heartbreaking and agonizing death ceremonies, for this would remove them from the proper levels of excellence in Torah teaching and guidance. The Torah is the ultimate source of joy. Psalm 19, many of us recite that on Shabbat morning in our liturgical order. We study of Pikudei Hashem Yisharim Misamehei Lev, the statutes of God, the statements of Torah. They bring joy to the heart. Misamehei Lev. The Kohen must remain jovial and optimistic. Chumash, if spelled without a vav at least. Chet mem shin, same letters as Sameach. Sin mem het. The source of simcha is the Chumash. The source of joy is the Torah. Remember on Tisha B'Av, in years gone by? Shalom Aleichem. Remember that on Tisha B'Av, in the years where the Jewish people used to mourn on Tisha B'Av, we hope this year already there will be complete redemption, and Tisha B'Av will be completely a different kind of observance. But in the past, when Tisha B'Av was the saddest day of the year, do you know one of the laws of Tisha B'Av is that it's prohibited to study Torah on Tisha B'Av? Only certain selections of Torah. Why? Because Torah is joy, and Tisha B'Av is not joy. A mourner, God forbid, is prohibited to study so many of the sections of the Torah, for it is prohibited for him or for her to indulge in joyous pursuits. Pikudei Hashem Yisharim Misamechei Lev. I was thinking that perhaps it is Aharon HaKohen, that maybe it is of Aharon HaKohen, the leader of the group of Kahuna, the ultimate Kohen. It is of Aharon HaKohen that we first learn of someone being in a state of joy. Although the word Simcha does appear earlier in the Torah, in the book of Breshit, in the book of Genesis, we read of Lavan suggesting that maybe he would have escorted and sent away Yaakov b'simcha. Nevertheless, if I'm not erring, and I did not research this completely, maybe someone should correct me if I'm not saying the truth, or if I'm making a mistake, especially since certain people are listening to this. So, if I'm not erring, I think it is of Aharon HaKohen, of whom we read for the very first time in the Torah, as the person being described as being Sameach. Are there people in a state of Simcha before Aharon? I'm sure there are. But do we find people referred to as Smechim before Aharon HaKohen? Remember chapter 4 of Exodus, Shmot Dalet, Pasuk Yidalet, Hinehu Yotzei Likratecha, V'ra'acha, V'samach B'libo. He will feel joy in his heart. Aharon will be in a state of joy. Rabbi Tzadok HaKohen says, study the first reference in the Torah to a phenomenon, and maybe that will help you understand the phenomenon. So if my assumption is correct, then maybe Aharon HaKohen is the epitome of Sameach. If indeed the reference to Sameach is connected to Aharon HaKohen, it is because inherently the Kahuna is connected to Simcha. The Kohen priest is ever so connected to joy. The Ishbitzer says, you can't have a Kohen being connected to sources of depression and sadness. That goes against the Kahuna, that goes against the teaching of Torah. And you know, the Kohanim priests must bless the people. Ko tevarachu et bnei Yisrael, amar lahem. Can one really bless others if one is not in a state of joy? If one carefully studies the laws of the priestly blessing, the laws of Birchat Kohanim, see the guide, the Code of Jewish Law, Shulchan Aruch, Siman Kuf Kaf Het, chapter 128, one senses the urgency in several of the laws of Birchat Kohanim that the Kohen must be in a state of joy in order to properly offer blessings in a heartfelt way. You can't just get up there and say Yivarechecha Hashem v'yishmerecha. You have to be happy. You have to feel happiness. You have to feel joy. L'nefesh lo yitama ba'amav. Will you be able to bless the people? For instance, I think it's worthwhile to study several of the comments of Rav Moshe Isserlish in his glosses on the Shulchan Aruch, the Rambam, who quotes several opinions in the laws of Birchat Kohanim that certain groups of Kohanim are prohibited to bless the people. For instance, we hope that all of those people seeking marriage partners should find them happily and healthfully this evening. But let's say there's a Kohen who's not yet married. The Ramah says that there are opinions that an unmarried Kohen cannot recite Birchat Kohanim. It is prohibited for him to recite the priestly blessing. V'yesh omrim, some say that the source of this is Mordechai, one of the early authorities, and some say it's based on a Zoharic teaching. The Zohar seems to be discussing also a non-married Kohen. I'm not saying this is a normative halacha. It's not followed in most communities, at least, but it's important to study this concept. Says the Ramah, V'yesh omrim, the Kohen shehu panui. There is an opinion that suggests that a Kohen that's not married ain't no say kapav. Why? Why? Because you have to be happy. You can't just bless. What does it mean to bless? You really want to bless? You really want a blessing of the Kohen? It has to be with simcha. The hasharui below isha. Hasharui below simcha. That a person who's unmarried often is without true levels of joy. V'hamivarech yesh lo liot b'simcha. And the person offering the blessing, especially the Kohen, must be in a state of joy. And the Ramah suggests in another comment there, there's a whole discussion. There's a whole discussion of someone who, God forbid, should never happen again. Bezrat Hashem, all death should be removed from the world. But in the past, when people unfortunately died, so is a Kohen who is a mourner, a Kohen who is in a state of mourning. Is he permitted to recite Birchat Kohanim? And there are all different kinds of customs about this. What about the week of Shivar? Can he recite Birchat Kohanim? There are different customs in Yerushalayim, elsewhere. What about a Kohen during the first month of Avelut? Can he recite during the first month of Avelut? Can a Kohen recite Birchat Kohanim? What about throughout the entire year, the first year? God forbid, the 12 months of mourning over a parent. Is the Kohen in a state of joy? Says the Ramah, V'yesh omrim, D'chol zman ha'avelut, afilu ad yud bet chodesh, al aviv v'al imo, eino noseh et kapav. There is an opinion that suggests that for the entire first year, the entire year of mourning, a Kohen cannot recite the blessing. Because you need real joy. As the author of the Mishnah Berurah writes, Sheino nikra sharoi b'simcha. In order to bless, you have to be b'simcha. And the Kohen in the state of Avelut is not in a state of simcha, is not in a state of joy. The loss is so great, and he's prohibited to participate in celebrations, the language of the Mishnah Berurah. Sharei asur leilech li nisuin. He can't even participate in weddings. Can he be in a state of joy? So maybe l'nefesh lo yitama ba'amav. We are trying to protect the level of joy of the Kohanim. The Kohen must not defile himself with the dead, even though there is a mitzvah of Kfurat Hamet. There is a mitzvah of burying the dead. There is a commandment to be sensitive to the deceased, but nevertheless, the simcha, joy of the Kohen, must be preserved. And this, perhaps, can help us understand the very unusual custom of Ashkenazic Jewry outside of Eretz Yisrael. We love Ashkenazic Jewry, we love Sephardic Jewry, we love Yemenite Jewry, we love all the Jews. Hopefully we love every Jew wherever they are. Hopefully reach a level of loving the whole world.
Hungarian Jew.
Hungarian Jew, yes. Also, yes. Hashem should bless them. There's a custom in Ashkenazic Jewry that many commentaries, many codifiers have tried to explain. There is a commandment in the Torah that a Kohen should bless the people. There's no time stated when they should bless the people. Here, Baruch Hashem, let's say in Yerushalayim Mir HaKodesh, we recite the priestly blessing every day, the whole year. Anyone who's ever been a member of a community outside of Eretz Yisrael, in the Ashkenazic communities, knows that there are very few times throughout the year, where the Kohanim bless the people. Maybe Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, the first 2 days of Sukkot, Shmini Atzeret Simchat Torah, the first days of Pesach, the last days of Pesach, the 2 days of Shavuot. That's it. What about the rest of the year? Why don't they say Birchat Kohanim? And many have suggested let's try to reinstate the Birchat Kohanim. Until today, as far as I know, that's the practice that's followed in Ashkenazi communities throughout the world. Why? Why don't they say Birchat Kohanim? It's a mitzvah. Omar lahem. Kol tavarechu et bnei Yisrael. Says the Ramah. V'nahagu b'chol medinot elu. And the custom throughout all these communities, throughout all the countries, all around us, is she'en noseim kapayim ela b'yom tov. Only on holidays. Why on holidays? Because a person is in a state of joy on Yom Tov. Mishum she'az shruyim b'simchat Yom Tov. Because then they are experiencing the joy of the holiday. And when you're in a state of joy, then you can share a blessing. V'tov leiv hu yivorach. V'tov leiv hu yivarech. A person in a calm state, a person in a happy state, can offer blessings. The Kohen has to be happy, and if indeed their happiness is somewhat, not perfect, because of the vicissitudes of daily life, because of the struggles, because of the challenges, so they don't get up there and say Birchat Kohanim. And he suggests something which is a little unusual. I'm not sure I understand it correctly, but I'll quote it anyway. The Ramah says, so why is it that even on the holidays, here in Eretz Yisrael, right here in Yerushalayim, everyone who's sitting here has probably participated many times in Birchat Kohanim in the Holy Land, the Holy City. We recite Birchat Kohanim here, let's say on any Shabbat, or surely on any Yom Tov, both in the first service and in the second service, in Shacharit and in Musaf, right? That's the way it's done. Surely in Yerushalayim, maybe there are places elsewhere where they follow differently. I think there are certain places in Eretz Yisrael, maybe in Tiveria. I think there are certain places where they only say, but that's the custom in many places. Shacharit and Musaf, correct? Yes, says the Ramah. So why is it? And that's the way I was brought up before Baruch Hashem gave us the blessing of moving to Eretz Yisrael. I was only accustomed to hearing Birchat Kohanim in Musaf. So he says the only true time of Simcha is Musaf. You know why? Because what really brings the Simcha on Yom Tov? Maybe when you're about to go and enjoy the Simchat Yom Tov, Ein Simcha Ella B'Basar V'Yayin. Well, if you're just praying Shacharit, let's say it's 8:30 in the morning, you have another few hours to go till you really get to the Simcha. How much Simcha will the Kohen feel? The Ramah suggests that the reason for delaying the Birchat Kohanim until Musaf in Chutz La'aretz is because only then can they truly feel the Simcha of Yom Tov. When the Kohanim are about to leave the synagogue and participate in the joy of the celebration of the holiday. It seems that the Kohanim must be in a state of joy. Joy and calm are necessary for Birchat Kohanim. Joy and calm are necessary for Talmud Torah. The Kohanim are the ultimate peacemakers. You have to be in a certain state of joy have to be in a certain state of calm. In order, if you want to follow in the pathways of Aharon HaKohen, Ohev Shalom, Rodef Shalom, Ohev et Abriot, loving everyone, bringing peace of mind. That's why the Nefesh Lo Yitama Ba'ama. Maybe the Kohanim who lead us to the temple, Samahti, as the psalmist writes, Samahti ba'omrim li, Beit Hashem nelech. I feel happiness when I speak about going to the house of God. The Kohanim lead us in the state of Simcha. And therefore, L'nefesh lo yitama ba'ama. May God remove any death from the entire world. May the discussion of defilement, of contact with the dead, remain only academic. And may we understand the message of the special laws of the Kohanim, leading us to a greater understanding of the significance of joy in the category of the leaders of our temple and the teachers of our people. Thank you so much for listening.
I have a beautiful song. Samachti be'omrim li. I can sing it like that. Okay? Samachti be'omrim li Bet ad Hashem nelech Omdot ayu raglenu בשערייך ירושלים, ירושלים הבנויה, כעיר שחוברה לה יחדיו, ששם עלו שבטיה, עדות לישראל, להודות לשם אדוני. שלום בחילך, שלווה בארמונותייך, למען אחי ורעי, אדברה שלום בך, למען בית השם אלוקינו, אדברה שלום בך. למען בית השם אלוקינו, אדברה שלום בך.
חזק וברוך. שלום וברכה. מי שברך אבותינו אברהם יצחק ויעקב, משה ואהרון דוד ושלמה.